basic white pieces into 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. You can cut 9 pieces if you like. You may not use them all, but it's nice to have them in case 1, you make a mistake, or 2, you wish to use all of them. So you're going to cut these pieces, the basic white, into 2 3/4 and 2 3/4. So let's start by doing that. Once we've cut the pieces, what we're going to do is we are going to stamp some images from the In the Moment stamp set with our Memento black ink. Okay, so I'm just going to ink that up, and I'm going to place that on there. Okay, and I'm going to do that, an image for all the images that they have on here. So I'm going to do at least 3. Okay, and make sure you ink it up nice and well with your Memento black. Okay. And you can color them in with either your blends, or you can sponge it, or whatever you like, however you wish to color them in. Okay. Now the 2 3/4 by 2 3/4 should fit all of the images that we have selected. You may also wish to use some some images from other stamp sets if you like. Okay, I think I'm just going to flip that over and redo that one again a little bit higher. Okay, make sure you ink it up well. Okay, so I have at least 3 of the images, and what I want to do is I'm going to get some scrap basic white paper, and I'm going to stamp some of the sentiments on these so that I can punch them out and use them on the sampler also. Okay. So you want a nice selection of sentiments and pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another stamp set and get some other sentiments and some images that I feel are going to fit with what I am creating. So I'm going to be using a bunch of different sentiments, and I may do a little bit extra this way. When I'm working with the sampler, I can pick and choose with what I want to use, but I'm going to be using some of the On Horizon, A Friendly Hello. I really like the flowers in that, and I'm going to take some of these from Love What You Do from the Create Together, and I'm going to be creating a whole bunch of different sentiments. This way I can pick and choose as I'm coming along with what I want in my sampler. So I'm going to just stamp some extra pieces of basic white cardstock and just add that in. Okay. Take a look through all of the stamp sets that you have. You will be surprised on what you have collected. Really does work with a sampler. Now the next part, you can either do this first on deciding on which designer series paper you want to use with your sampler, or you can do it at this point. Now determining which designer series paper you use will actually change quite a bit what your sampler will look like. So if we take the Symbols of Fortune, which is actually a gorgeous, gorgeous designer series paper, it will kind of change the look of our sampler a little bit. Now, all of the designer series papers will work with the sampler. It is always a personal choice of what you would like to use for your own sampler. So they will change it. So what you may want to do is determine which designer series paper you want to use, or depending on where you put your sampler, you may want to choose on that also. So go through and figure out what you want to use. So that is part of the fun, is trying to figure that out. And like I said, all of the papers will look absolutely fantastic with what you have. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to have at least one sheet that is a 12 by 12, and the rest we will be using cut down a little bit. So you will need to use something that's a 12 by 12 for the main matte portion. Okay, so good luck and try and figure that out, and I will see you back after I've just decided which one I'm going to be using. Right, I don't know what you've decided to do, but I'm going to go with a combination of artfully composed. And the reason I wanted to do that is I wanted to pick up on the Pear Pizzazz. Now, one of my favorite designer series papers is the ones with the leaves on here, and I love leaves, so I think that's going to work really well. And I've decided to pull in some of the designer series paper from the Celebration, a bit maybe with the bit of the black and the green matching hearts. I thought that those colors would look really good together, so I decided to go with that. And I'm going to mat all of my pieces with, again, Pear Pizzazz. And I thought that's going to look really nicely, really nice together. So that is the combination I'm going to be working with. So I just wanted to let you know. I don't know what you've decided with. Everybody is different, and to match with where your location is. So in the meantime, I'm going to be cutting down my pieces, and my cardstock, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting at least maybe 9 pieces, and they will be 3 by 3 inches. So that is the cardstock that I'm going to be using for the frame. So for the frame, for each piece. Okay, so just to let you know. So let's get some cutting going. noticed that I did is I kind of moved them around, and depending on what I'm going to be using, I also want to get some die cuts in here. So I kind of laid them out roughly, a little bit with a picture and then some wording, so that they're not all kind of heavy to one side. So this is kind of roughly how I'm going to lay it out. Now I'm going to get some different dies, I'm going to get some different punches, and I'm just going to add on to this and see how I can make it a little bit more fuller on that. So let's take a look. All right. I'm going to use the flowers from the Friendly Hello from the celebration, and I'm going to do stamp some of those out and then cut them out. Okay, so let's just cut some of these out and get laying them on the papers. some more different sentiments that I might use. I don't know if I will, but it's nice to have them around. I also did a couple with some frames around. As I put it together, I can decide what I want to use. So that's part of it too. So what I'm going to do now is I am actually going to do some coloring. Now that I've chosen my designer series paper, I've just decided on what my frame matte color is. I can now color these pictures to match what I'm going to be using. So let's get our blends or our coloring tools and start some coloring. All right, I have got now all of my pictures colored in, and I even colored in some of the sentiments here. You can't quite tell, but I colored that in too. What I want to do now is I'm going to leave this on my board here and just put it off to the side. What I want to do is create the mat that it's all going to go onto, and it's going to be 11 inches by 11 inches. If you want a smaller frame around that, you can just make it down a little bit more if you want. It's up to you. So let's start at 11 inches at 11 inches. So I'm going to take my 12 by 12 and cut that down. So that is cut down 11 by 11. And I still have my 12 by 12 sheet there that I'm using as my backdrop. So, okay, so I have that. There's the 12 by 12. I'm going to be using the black. I'm going to put this 11 by 11 around. There's a little bit of an edge. If you want, you can also put a little edge around by using ordering some 12 by 12 and just cutting it down. Or if you want, you can actually even use 8.5 by 11 and just butt them up. You really don't see the seam, so I can show you how to do that in 1 second. If you did want to put a frame around, such as cardstock, you can do that. Just bring down the inside paper just a little bit and use that as a little bit of frame here. Now, if you do butt it up, you really won't notice if you put it all together like that. So there is a bit of a seam, but you're going to butt up against that there. So that is actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this down a little bit more because the sheet underneath is 8.5 by 11. So that means I just need to take this down a little bit more. And I'm going to take it down to 10.5. Or maybe 10 3/4, and I'm going to see how that looks. And each time, if I want, I can actually go down even a little bit, another 1/4 inch. So let's do small cuts and see how it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put these two pieces together. And if you want, one thing you could do is cut out the center here and save some of your cardstock, and that you could do that too. But I am just going to add some tape. I'm going to tape it up together. I'm not going to tape right up to the end because I don't want it to overhang, that you would see it. But I'm going to do a nice good adhesive in the middle. And I'm going to cut this to 11 by 11. So let's get that cut, 11, and it's already 11 inches, so I don't have to worry. Okay. Let's do that and just double check. And if you want, actually, let's tape this up and actually we'll flip it over so it's on the other side. Okay, that will actually be better. And you really can't quite tell the seam here. And excuse me, once we place that on, there's a very small seam around, kind of pops it up, that you can just see there. So that's going to look really, really nice. Okay, and then we can start layering that back up. So I'm going to leave this the way it is, and I'm going to put my pieces back on. And as you can see, the cardstock that I'm using here is actually picked up here, and it all kind of coordinates into itself. It works really well. Again, we're going to put our pieces back on. Now this one I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a white background or what. So, and let's get back to this. Put these back on. Okay. There we go. What was it? Can't remember how it was. Was it 1 at the top, 2 on here? And just can't remember how it was. So you can always move these around like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was something similar to that. Okay. And I got all my little pieces underneath. I actually really just like those pieces on by itself. Oops. And I have some of my sentiments on. I can place that on here. and put some on like that. I might do that for this one here too. So I just kind of move them around a little bit. Actually, this one looks really good by itself. Let's see if I just tuck under another color. No. I might look at some of the designer series papers that I have for this and see what I can use for the backing. I really like this one. This kind of is a little not quite making it pop. Just go through some of your designer series paper and see what kind of makes it look good to you, that so it is attractive to you. Might actually end up just putting a white underneath that, like that, and maybe I'll stamp something in the background there. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I think I'll go something similar to that, and I will just pop on some of the flowers that I've created with some of the other dies. Okay, and a little bit like this. Put some of the leaves coming out. Don't forget to try on some ribbons to add some dimension to that. So I'm just going to kind of lay these out just to get an idea, excuse me, to see what I like. Kind of like how these little flowers, how they all kind of come together. I did some in different colors to try and pick up all of the colors in the paper. So tuck them in behind and on top. And there we go. Okay, so once you're happy with how they are laid out and stuff like that, then you could start adding adhesive. Don't forget, add some dimensionals behind the different items to give them different depth. And I'm going to go and grab some ribbon to see what else I can use. So I might pop some of that up. Maybe I'll use that behind here. Use some of the designer series paper on the ribbon there and add a little bit more. That actually looks pretty good to me. But let's get some ribbon and see how that is. What I'm going to do, the next step, is actually adhere some of the ones with the pictures down to the cardstock so that they don't get lost. I know for sure that that's where I want them to be, so I'm just going to add those to the cardstock right there. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to start building up the ones that I know for sure. So I'm going to put this together, put that sentiment together. Right? And I'm actually going to start building this up. And you'll notice I'm going to go a little bit outside of the area. I want to give it a little bit of falling out of the frame a little bit. I think that looks really, really pretty. What I want to do is actually get more out of this leaf than I have, so I'm going to cut it and use a little bit um, on the other side. I'm going to use it, try and get as much out of it as I can. Once you've laid out everything the way that you want it, what we're going to do now is start spacing around the edges here. And what I want to do, one of the best things to do is to take a small piece of cardstock, and I'm actually going to cut it to 1.5. Now this is 11. I'm going to take actually down a little bit more than 1.5, down to 1 1/4. And we are just going to do a couple. I'm going to do 1.5 and maybe right at the 1 inch mark, because I'm going to have a couple to work with. So do that 1 inch. That's at the 1 centimeter mark. Okay. And so I'm going to have 2 of each. So I got 2 thin ones. That's going to go across, and that's going to help me kind of lay it all out. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this all aside, and I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to butt it up against the edge here. So it's right against the edge. Okay, up to there. And I'm going to take the other one and do it along the top. And let's see how that spaces out. So if I do that, and a little bit in between, let's see how that spaces out. Might have to make it a little thicker, and I'm going to have a little bit too much down there. So, okay, what if I did this? I'm going to hold that there. 1.5. That's at the 1 centimeter. And I'm going to space it a little bit. And I'm going to move, bring that up, hold that down. And 1 centimeter. Oh, that's going to work really well. So, I'm going to go back up. I'm going to make sure it's in the corner. Start there. Okay, all the way around. And I'm going to add some adhesive onto that. There we go. I'm going to bring that down. Some adhesive onto that. Put it in there. Bring it down. There we go. Bring this down. Add some adhesive. So I can see down here in the corner. There we go. if you want, there you go, and just add a little bit of embellishments on here and there.